Market Prospects, delivering timely information and education to prairie farmers for over 30 years. Market Prospects is brought to you by the University of Saskatchewan's Department of Agricultural and Resource Economics and these sponsors. Log on to marketprospects.usask.ca to view past programs and for information on upcoming programs.
For our Market Prospects interview this week, we look at the world oilseed situation and outlook. Joining us from Chicago is Daniel Basse, president of AgResource Company. Mr. Basse, it's again a privilege to have you on Farmgate.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me, and glad to talk about oilseeds for another year.
Well, let's begin with what you see for the current global oilseed stocks, demand, and prices, and what you expect for the rest of the current crop year.
Well, as we think about the oilseed market this year, there's really three factors that have become dominant as we move into the last half of the crop year. That being, of course, large U.S. soybean stocks, a large Brazilian crop, and, of course, the palm oil supply, which is now in a seasonal upswing. We look for the year ahead for palm oil supplies to be up about 6 million metric tons above a year ago. That's largely due to, of course, the ending of La Nina and trees coming back into production. But if you combine soy, sun, and palm all together, we have an abundance of oil seeds, which likely will add pressure to prices as we think over the next couple of months.
So how is the soybean crop in South America looking at this point, and what do you see for movement of that crop to market?
Well, it's one of the best South American crops and growing cycles that we can remember. The Brazilians look like they'll harvest a soybean crop between 110 and 111 million metric tons. That's going to be up some 14 or 15 million metric tons from last year. That's a sizable increase and means that the Brazilians will be exporting soybeans, both in terms of oil meal and the physical product, probably all the way through November of the upcoming year. So it's going to go into the new crop season. This means that the U.S. export profile is likely going to decline. We expect anyway that as we look at the new crop production out of the United States, it will be record large also. But all of this added together, along with those big palm oil supplies I discussed earlier, likely weighs on the price pressure. But the big difference this year versus last year, again, is having a Brazilian soybean crop 14 to 15 million metric tons larger than the year before.
What do you expect for U.S. seeded acreage of corn versus soybeans this spring, and what will that mean for world oilseed markets?
Well, if there's anything called piling on, it's probably the U.S. farmer, which will seed a record supply of soybeans this year. The price profitability of soybeans versus corn is somewhere around $70 an acre, more towards soybeans versus corn. And so farmers seeing a small $10 profit per acre will be planting soybeans in the year ahead. USDA will be out with their number here on the 31st of March. This is Friday. We expect a number somewhere around 88.5 million acres. Give or take a 500,000 acres, that's still a record total. In general, this is up about 5 million acres from last year. So U.S. farmers are embracing soybeans as a crop of profit and choice for 2017, and we look for a sizable increase in acreage. On the other side of that will be corn. Corn acreage looks like it'll drop back to 90 or 91 million acres, so maybe not as many corn acres, but in terms of oilseeds, whether it's the United States or Canada, Latin America, or even Europe, every farmer in the world is embracing planting more oilseed crops this year because of its profitability relative to the grains.
So what is your projection for world demand, supply, and prices for oilseeds in 2017-2018?
Well, the outlook for demand looks relatively healthy. We expect that the Chinese, which this year will be importing about 87 million metric tons of soybeans, will be taking 91 or 92 million metric tons in the 17 and 18 years. So the Chinese are indeed keeping up their part of the bargain in taking more soybeans. However, as I look at the rest of the world, India imports of veg oils will likely decline. We do, of course, also see that European demand for oils due to, of course, biofuels contain a situation will likely be softening. So in a general sense, it's the Chinese that are again carrying the day, and we do see global oilseed demand up some 7 to 8 million metric tons, all oilseeds combined. But again, it's going to be soy that predominantly is based in China.
So what key factors should Western Canadian farmers watch for in the coming year as they plan for the oilseed production and marketing?
Well, the thing we like anyway about the oilseed market is canola. We do think canola prices have a story. Some of that is related to the upcoming potential of a new biodiesel prospect in the United States called a producer credit. Right now, the U.S. imports about 2 million metric tons of Argentinian soy oil for biodiesel purposes. If the U.S. government makes it a U.S.-only program, which means that we would be drawing Canadian canola oil southward. Also, I really believe the Chinese have a story of importing more canola and canola oil in the year ahead. The Chinese have allowed their canola oil stocks to decline to around 2.2 million metric tons as of today. They could fall to maybe 2 million metric tons by the summer, but already we believe the Chinese have an interest in buying Canadian canola to replenish their reserves going forward. Remembering that China has been auctioning off about 100,000 metric tons of canola oil per week or rape oil per week to get rid of its strategic reserves, which had become burdensome. So we like canola oil. We don't think there's a lot of downside risk in a new crop position. And as we go forward, we think the Chinese are definitely a story of demand for canola oil going forward. So the message is that canola oil gains on the rest of the oilseed complex, principally soybeans and palm oil going forward.
Well, great information, Mr. Basse. Thanks very much for taking time to come on Farmgate.
You're very welcome. Glad to be with you.
We'll be right back after a short commercial break.